Hello, welcome back to the Cricket Nerds. Today you've got all three nerds talking to you about the Champions Trophy because that is coming up very soon. We wanted to do a preview on it, so here you go. It's the year of the nerds, 2025. We're back. But anyway, yes, Champions Trophy. Very exciting. I mean, usually the Champions Trophy is a bit of like, no one really thinks about the Champions Trophy. But because there's so few ODI matches going on in the calendar year, unless you're an Afghanistan fan, they seem to play a lot. Then
all the ODIs.
Yeah, when this comes around, it's actually we get to see some ODI cricket, which is a great form of the game. So yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. And yeah, let us know in the comments who you think is going to win, because we're going to reveal ours at the end of the video. So make sure you stick around to the end as well. Benj, which squad would you like to talk about first?
Oh, let's keep it easy and talk about the England squad because, again, in classic England fashion, they released their squad a lot of days before the deadline, and it looks pretty much like the standard England white ball squad that we've come to know recently. One thing I wanted to point out was it's one of the first times that I've noticed that England are in recent times are sort of merging their test side and their white ball side. If you look at the names, there's a lot of, we've got Harry Brook, Ben Duckett, Joe Root and Jamie Smith all in the starting test match 11. Jacob Bethel's put his stamp as a test match player over the summer with Bryden Carson there as well. And then we look at the bowling, we've got Gus Atkinson, Mark Wood and Jofra Archer. So a lot of names that we've seen for a long time in the red ball and the white ball, and it's bridging that gulf, I think, that we've seen between having sort of specialist white ball players and specialist red ball players. There are a few that are in there, we've got the Liam Livingstons and the Joss Butlers, but I think that's a positive move because what we've seen recently is a lot of players particularly for England, a lot of players for England in the white ball ODI squad who play T20 a lot of the time, play county championship, and that's it. And they don't really have much list day. They don't really have much 50 over. I think Jacob Bethel said he didn't really know what to do when he played that first. So giving people more experience, I think that's going to be a positive move. I like the look of the squad. I think you've got 15 good players. I actually am struggling picking my preferred 11, if I'm honest. We've got 3 class wicket keepers. We've got a great bowling attack, spinners, seamers. We've got the whole lot. I think the one thing we're probably lacking on a little bit, I've said with spinners, is an out-and-out off spinner. Obviously, we've got Adil Rashid and Liam Livingstone. Well, Adil Rashid being the frontline spin bowler, but with no Moeen Ali, a bit of off-spin lacking potentially. I know we've got Joe Root who can cover. We've got a little bit from Liam Livingstone, but that might be one thing that comes to haunt us, particularly as it's in Pakistan. And we know that spin plays a part there. I think it's an overall good squad. I don't know what you guys think about that, or any points if you agree or disagree with the England selectors.
I think you're right that there are 15 good players there. And I also think that you probably touched on their biggest weakness without knowing it when you said I'm struggling to figure out a good 11 here. As in, like, what the best 11 looks like. I think the composition of the team is going to be the hardest thing. We've seen in this the T20 series that England have been playing in India that they either look like they've got a really deep batting lineup because they've got Mark Wood in at 11 who actually can bat pretty well, or you can say they've actually got a really light batting lineup because their sort of bowlers start at Jamie Overton at like sort of 7. And I could see that being the same kind of case in these ODIs, where you've got the kind of bowling all-rounders that could give you a really handy sort of 40, 30 runs, such as Bryden Carson, Jamie Overton. Or it looks like you've just got, a load of bowlers that are going to give you like 10 or 15 and you're bowled all out for 200 every game.
Yeah.
And I think, obviously, with England, there's pacing issues that exist as well. Certainly in ODIs. I know it takes Phil Salt quite a lot of sort of a mindset shift because he goes from being out and out, like, doesn't matter if I average 25 because I'm going at 160 strike rate,
Yeah.
to then suddenly think, right, I'm here to play the long game.
Yeah.
I think with England, the confusion for the fans can quite often be where they've got all these players that are incredible in test matches, or at least they can be incredible in test matches, and you think, wow, you guys are just batting as if it's a one-day game, and they pace it perfectly for a 50-over game. And then when it comes to the 50-over game, they lose all their heads and they
play
just
like
go
a
all out.
T20. Yeah.
Yeah.
To address your sort of concern about the off spinner, I think Joe Root is actually a brilliant option. He's been playing in the SA20. He's been absolutely brilliant. He's been working on his round arm ball, which is borderline illegal.
Yeah.
Like he's getting it to out there,
Classic
and if it's
Malinga
there,
route.
then it's illegal. So, but it's been really effective. He's been keeping people like Kane Williamson and Heinrich Klaassen sort of under wraps a bit, and that's incredibly impressive.
Yeah.
Especially because they're right-handed batters. So, yeah, the biggest question mark for me is Liam Livingstone, because he is the biggest hit or miss player you've ever seen. He's kind of the new Moeen Ali in the same way, where it was just throughout their careers, it's been frustrating to watch them because you think you've got all the ability, but you get yourself out all the time. So, Zach, I'm interested to know what you think.
Well, I have two things. The first thing with Liam Livingstone is I think that it's been unfortunate for him that when he's come into the team, because we've generally prioritised the 2020 tournaments or the test matches, the one-day matches have been put to the side. But Liam Livingstone is always in the squad. He's always in the white ball squad and has quickly become like one of the senior members in the white ball team. And he's not really had a consistent run at one particular position or in a particular role. Whereas I think he's still finding himself, even though he's 31. I still think he's finding himself in this team. And I'm hoping that with people above him who can maybe bat more sensibly and bat more time, that will help him. Because what we've seen is these really good young 2020 players just get pushed into this one-day team having no experience, which you touched on, Benj. Whereas now we've got Joe Root back in the squad, which I think is it makes a massive difference having him at 3. Having Josh Butler back after his injury in the last series, and Harry Brook and Jamie Smith, like those 4 options bring that sense of stability. But I am still concerned in a way, as you said, the pacing. Like, are we going to get bowled out in 40 overs and be lacking? Because in this recent T20 series against India, we're struggling we are making it the 20 overs, but we're always 9 down or all out.
Always, crawling to it.
Yeah.
What is your preferred, and I want to hear this for you, your preferred 11 for both, for the England team? I know we've been throwing it around a little bit in our group chat, but
well,
like obviously we've got Ben Duckett and Phil Sart opening.
I didn't mention Ben Duckett. He's actually got a really good List A record as well. So
yeah, I love seeing Ben Duckett in the ODI. I think the fact that he's opening in Test, opening in white ball, I like him in T20. I like him in ODI. I think he's great. If Zach Crawley was more consistent, I think we could see him there as well. I think he will at some point be a good ODI player, but he's just got that consistency.
Yeah.
But Duckett and Salt, I think that's a fantastic opening partnership. Root has to bat at 3, I think, in ODI. And then Brook is 4. I think that's fairly nailed on. I think Jamie Smith gets left out and Butler comes in at 5. And then we see Livingston and Livingston and Bethel at 6 and 7. And then you're into the bowlers. And it's trying to pick 4 bowlers out of that list, which is quite difficult. But you've got the all-rounders. And because if you look at the seamers, Carse, Overton, Archer, Mahmood, Wood and Atkinson, I mean, they're all fantastic in their own right. Like, you could make a case to play all of them. But I think, seeing that mix. One thing that we don't have with the bowling is a point of difference. I think with the lack of Reece Topley, it's all right arm fast or right arm fast medium. So it's the difference of pace is going to be the interesting thing. I mean, there are subtle differences. You've got Jofra gets more bounce. You've got Wood gets a bit more skid. Mahmood's more of a swing bowler. Atkinson holds that good test match length. So it's going to be interesting to see how England mix that one up. But it's a good squad, and I think we'll see the bowlers rotating. I'm interested to think for what you think about that. 11. Do you think the top seven's fairly nailed on, and it's just the bowlers that are going to rotate?
I would actually make a case to say that Bethel doesn't necessarily make the starting lineup. My reasoning for that is, although he's a very talented player, very exciting, got a bright future ahead of him, I say that Jamie Smith is a better batsman. And then, so for me, with Root being a good option as an off spinner, a good second option, you could have the case where Jamie Smith and Livingston are playing. If one of them is out of form, then Bethel comes in instead. That would be how I'd do it.
Yeah, I think I'd be looking at Bethel, Livingston being the kind of, that's the choice personally for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really interesting. Should we go on to India's squad now? Because got an interesting squad again. Really, really strong crop of players, particularly in the all-rounder section. I'm just going to read out the 4 all-rounders. We've got Ravindra Jadeja, Hardik Pandya, Axar Patel, Washington Sundar. Like 4 absolute worldies there, and all do something slightly different. I mean, obviously Jadeja and Axar are both left arm orthodox, but Axar Patel's from like a 7-foot release point or something, 8 foot. I don't know what it is. So that got brilliant players, and then not their bowlers obviously Arshdeep, Jasprit, Kuldeep, and Shami, all very, very, very good. So again, I think making the 11 could be interesting, like an interesting choice for Gautam Gambhir to make. Rohit Sharma being the captain, so you kind of can't drop him. But one person I do want to highlight as being a real point of interest for me, but certainly as a Punjab fan as well, but based on their recent form in the Vijay Hazare Trophy, which is the Indian domestic one-day one, Shreyas Iyer averaged, so he played 5 matches, he scored 325 runs at a strike rate of 131 and an average of 325.
Not bad,
so he only went out once, which is only the second highest average as well, which is the most insane thing, because Karan Nair, he played 9 matches, had 8 innings, and he averaged 389. So, and he doesn't even make the India squad. How crazy is that? But in the same way that I think England should be playing Sam Hain, because he is our best ODI player, or at least our best one-day match player. India aren't playing Karan Nair. It's interesting stuff. But what are your thoughts on that India squad? Is it a tournament-winning squad? And side note on that, is Rohit Sharma in the best 11 for you?
That's the thing. Like, whenever you look at an India 15, you always think it's a tournament-winning squad. That goes without saying. They always look like they're such world-class players. They're always going to be contending. I mean, unless they choke on the big stage, which we've seen previously. I mean, the last ODI World Cup is a good example of that. I don't know if Rohit Sharma is becoming a little bit of an Owen Morgan of like 2020, 2021, the sort of specialist captain, because he's not going to bowl. I think genuinely there's better opening options in Jaiswal and Shubman Gill. I think one thing you can't take away from Rohit is he is one of the greatest ODI players to ever play the game. Like, his record in ODI is just outstanding. It's unreal. Is he the best opening option? Because, I mean, you're not going to play him at number 6 like he's been putting himself in the test matches. If you've got Jaiswal, Gill, Virat, Rishabh, Shreyas, like, that's a really good top 5. Does he almost fit in that? What's going to happen is Gill going to bat 3? Is Kohli going to bat 4 like they have in the test team? I think it's a difficult one. I think it would be a lot easier if Rohit wasn't the captain and wasn't in the squad. So I don't know if we're going to see an announcement after the Championship Trophy, if this is going to be Rohit's almost swan song, maybe, like trying to redeem himself for the ODI World Cup. I mean, what a good story that would be if they come and win this. But yeah, Zach, what are your thoughts? I'm very on the fence.
Well, with Rohit Sharma, for me, he's kind of like India's version of Shai Hope It doesn't matter what form they're in Test match cricket or 2020 cricket. You put them in a one-day lineup, and they just are a different player. And you see that with Shai Hope, you see that with Rohit Sharma, and I think that I'll be very interested to see how he does in the one-day series against England, because that will give us a good indicator as to what sort of form he's in. Because if you look at the two experienced players in Sharma and Kohli, they're the ones who are out of form. So yeah, I'm interested to see how they do, particularly because for me, if India are going to do well in this World Cup, in the Champions Trophy, then they're going to need one of those two to perform, because I do think the other players are very good, but one of those two for me has to have like a really big series. I mean, in one-day cricket, you can't, like in 2020 cricket, you can rely on your all-rounders. You only need one or two players to fire with either bat or ball, and you win a game. In one-day cricket, the whole lineup has to keep going, and so I feel like India have the squad to do that. But if they lose 2 wickets early, if they lose Rohit Sharma early, if they lose Virat Kohli early, they lose Shubman Gill early, then there's a lot of pressure on that middle to lower order to do well. But in terms of their bowling, I think the bowlers pick themselves. Shami, Bumrah, Arshdeep, Kuldeep Yadav, and then probably Ravi Jadeja I would pick over Axar Patel and Washington Sundar. And yeah, that would be my India squad.
Let's talk about potentially the favourites for the Champions Trophy. Let's go to Australia.
Not Bangladesh.
Who have Australia have a very, very strong side. They've got, you'd say, probably a combination of one-day players and Test players, because obviously you've got like Marnus Labuschagne, who you'd generally think of as a Test player, in with people like Matthew Short, who is very much sort of in that white ball scene, but not really in the red ball stuff. Josh Inglis, he's made his debut now, scored a debut century on the what looks like a very flat wicket, at least when Australia were batting on it, but maybe they were just doing very well. But yeah, so Australia, do we think that they have a tournament-winning side in their, was it 15 players?
I look at their bowlers, and I think this is the first time where I've seen Australia where the fourth seamer isn't the one to target, because Stark, Hazelwood, Cummins, they're great, but then their fourth seamer is Nathan Ellis, who is coming off a very good Big Bash as captain as well for the Hurricanes. He's a very exciting prospect for them, and so yeah, their bowling attack, and then you add Adam Zampa on, who's probably one of the best white ball spinners in world cricket. It's just that bowling attack can win them the tournament, in my opinion. However, the batting is the thing that's the fallible thing, because Travis Head, he needs to come good most games. I don't trust Marnus Labuschagne in there. Stephen Smith isn't as good in one-day cricket as he is in Test cricket. He's still a very good batsman, don't get me wrong there. But then they just seem to be missing just one extra player. I just can't really quite work it out. I think there's a lot riding on a few players like Smith and Maxwell and Travis Head.
Maxwell, it's the Maxwell difference, isn't it? Like, Maxwell is one of those players that, I mean, we think back to the World Cup. I think he was one of the reasons why Australia won that World Cup. That 200 on one leg was just outstanding. And I think, yeah, it's hard for Australia not to be going in as favourites. I mean, Zach, you're on the ground there. You know, what's the vibe? Are people talking about the Champions Trophy, or are they all focused on their Test matches?
Well, I think Australia kind of just goes with whatever the next thing is. So right now the focus is Sri Lanka, Australia. For the cricket fans, it was the Big Bash. Now it's Sri Lanka, Australia. Then it will be the Champions Trophy. They talk about it when it comes along. But Australia just rate anything that they're putting their mind to. They're trying to win, which is a good mindset going in. But my one thing before we hand over to James is that I think that Australia, if they're going to win the tournament, what they're going to hope for is games where it's like 280, 300 is a good score. That for me is their realm of, we can defend that and we can chase that. If teams are scoring 350 against them, I think they'll struggle.
Yeah, they're a gritty team, aren't they? Yeah. They will defend a just below par total, and you'd back them in world cricket to do it generally. I think 5 bowlers are incredible. 5 of the best bowlers in world cricket. So it's on the other 6 then, who you're picking. So like Alex Carey, Josh Inglis, Travis Head, and Glenn Maxwell are all sort of guaranteed for me. So then it's just 2 players, and Steve Smith is probably one of them, because I definitely think an anchor is the way you win ODI cricket.
Mm.
And then that last spot, you're kind of probably looking for an opener, unless it's going to be Josh Inglis, in which case potentially Matthew Short. But you're right, it is a little bit of a, I don't know. It's the most I've struggled to just name an Australia squad for a little while.
Yeah.
I don't think that means they're going to be any weaker. I think Australia probably going to be my favourites to win the tournament. But I think it is harder to come up with an 11 now, because they just do have this sort of slightly aging side. They've had all this like very, very similar players for a very long time now. And it'd be really interesting sort of looking beyond this Champions Trophy as well to see what the transition process looks like.
Yeah.
Because we've seen in their games where they've had sort of Warner retire, and then like they knew that was coming for ages. All of the pundits, everybody had been kind of calling for Warner to retire for a really long time, and then when it actually happens, they're like, "Oh wait, what happens now?"
Who's open? Yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be really interesting to see, but yeah, I think they're still my favourites.
So we've looked at our favourite team. We've looked at probably the people's favourite team, because most people in the world support India. And we've looked at the history's favourite team, being that Australia generally win every ICC tournament that's put in front of them. So I reckon for the rest of the podcast, we should maybe have a general chat about all the other squads and think about who do we think could challenge those 3, or potentially we think is even stronger.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I want to talk about New Zealand and South Africa as the last 2, because I think they're the ones that they can always be a dark horse in a competition. South Africa, particularly in ODI. I would talk about Pakistan, but they've not released their squad, so we don't really know what that team looks like in terms of how that's gonna shape up. But I mean, the Black Caps, they're a team that can always cause an upset. I think Mitch Santner taking over the captaincy. I love Mitch Santner, like Chennai boy through and through. And I think he is a good prospect. I think it's good to see him with a bit of responsibility. I think he's a fantastic white ball player. But then that team, I mean, they're a team of all rounders. Like if you look at how Cricinfo categorises their squad, they've only got 4 people that are out and out batters in Conway, Latham, Williamson, and Will Young. Everyone else they classify as an all rounder. So I think we'll see a good mix in that team. I think we'll see Rachin Ravindra play a part. I think Glenn Phillips will have another great series. I think Darren Mitchell is always again, he can always put up a performance in when it matters. And then the player I really want to watch is Matt Henry. I think he has had his best ever year, particularly with the red ball. But Matt Henry has really stepped into the shoes of Trent Boult and Tim Southey. Those 2 have been the New Zealand seam attack for so many years now. And Matt Henry has really stamped himself as the number 1 seamer and really has come through as their replacement. So, yeah, it's an impressive squad. They can always do something. Again, similar issue to England. I am struggling to nail an 11 down though. But we'll see. We'll see what it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, for Group A, Bangladesh, India, New Zealand, and Pakistan, I think New Zealand will go through, and probably India. I mean, the India-Pakistan game, it's a shame that it's not being played in Pakistan. I think that's a real shame. But that is going to be quite a crucial game, in my opinion. To see who wins that one. South Africa. James, did you want to talk about South Africa or anyone else?
I'd love to chat about South Africa, because they are a consistent. I don't know if we can call them a dark horse side, because they're one of the best sides. They are incredibly impressive. Certainly, kind of their pace bowling attack is kind of renowned at this point. One of the best test pace bowling attacks, and that translates itself perfectly into one days. So you got Rabada, Janssen, Lungi Gidi. Obviously, Amrit Nork is injured, which is quite a big blow for them. But I think overall, it's still very, very strong. There are other people they could bring in as well, like Quenyama Parker, who is absolutely rapid. He's obviously really, really young as well. I think he's only 18, 19. But he's kind of, one to watch if he does come in, because he'll obviously ply his trade as they go. Keshav Maharaj, one of the best bowlers in the world at the moment. Certainly over the last couple of years as well, has been really, really good for them. So I think bowling wise is that is where they are as strong as sort of the best teams. And then batting, it's like it feels like it could really go either way with them. They could either absolutely storm it the whole way through, because they've got players like Rassi van der Dussen, who has been absolutely brilliant throughout his whole career in ODIs. But he is sort of coming towards the tail end of his career. So either he has a brilliant tournament or he's not very good. Same can be said for sort of Temba. Heinrich Klaassen, best white ball batter in the world, in terrible form during the SA20. It could just go either way, but I overall think they've got a very, very good chance of winning.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at their group, England, Australia, South Africa, Afghanistan, it's pretty hard to see who's going to go out of that group, because like even Afghanistan, like they've got, you think about some of their spin bowlers who are the whole bowling attack is suited to Pakistan conditions. They've got a really good variety of spinners. They've got some really good, accurate pace bowlers. And then when you look at their batting lineup, they've had the most practice in one-day cricket than any of the other teams in the competition. So I just feel like Afghanistan, you can't write them off. They're the ones who could cause an upset, probably beat England and knock England out. So what I'm expecting to happen. But yeah, it should be really interesting to see who progresses from that group, especially.
I'd say some of the biggest sort of notable omissions from a couple of the teams that we've just mentioned, which is New Zealand and Afghanistan, are two senior seamers. Because obviously Trent Bolt, he hasn't retired necessarily, but he hasn't taken a central contract. So New Zealand have kind of moved on from him. And I think that's a massive blow to New Zealand. And then for Afghanistan, Naveen Ul-Haq, who kind of completes their seam bowling attack, because you mentioned their spinners, and you're right, they've got like Ghazanfar, Noor Ahmed, Rashid Khan, obviously,
Nabi.
Mohamed Nabi, and then with their sort of bowling attack, they've got Fazil Haq Faruqi, who is okay. They would have had Naveen Ul-Haq, who is really quite impressive. And then, you can kind of complete it with Azmatullah Amarzai, who was the ICC ODI cricketer in the world. Yeah. He can swing it quite a lot. So that would have been a really nice complete attack. It's been depleted a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see how they do. And obviously with Afghanistan, it's always the batting that you kind of like, well, if the batting comes off, then they could do really well. Yeah. But they never have the best batter in the world in Afghanistan. They've got Ramanala Gurbaz, who's been sort of their hot prospect for a while, but nobody else really is like, you're looking at them and thinking, yeah, he's going to average 60.
Yeah, I think their recipe for success is bat first, try and make as many as you can, and then let the bowlers put on the pressure. Because if they get some wickets early in the power play, and then you have to face Rashid Khan in the middle overs, then that's going to be quite tricky for any team to face. But yeah, so now we need to just say who we think's going to win, because there's only 8 teams, so you've got a 1 in 8 chance of getting it right. 1 in 7 if you discount Bangladesh, which we haven't talked about Bangladesh. Shakib Al Hassan's going to be there, so that's going to be fun. He's probably like one of the best white ball players of all time, Shakib Al Hassan. that
Yeah.
you can't win a tournament by yourself.
I mean, he's been trying to for the last few years win a game by himself, but
yeah. But anyway, who do you think's going to win? I don't want to go first because I've not decided yet. So let's go with Benji. Who do you think is going to win?
My heart says England, but I don't really believe it. My head says Australia because they just win everything.
Yeah, both my head and heart have discounted England. I think they're not settled enough, and I can't even will it into existence. So I'd say the team I would like to see win would be South Africa, because I think they've got a really strong side. They've got exciting players, and if it comes off, then they're kind of, you root for them. But I think I'm the same as Benj. I think Australia are probably, just with the amount of experience that they've got and their bowling attack, I think they are favourites.
And I think this is the last major tournament this group of players will win. I think there's not another World Cup for a few years. I think we'll see the back end of them soon. The Cummins and the Starks, the Hazlewoods, the Steve Smiths. But yeah, I think they're just too good. Sorry, Zach, who's yours?
I'd love to see like New Zealand, South Africa in the final, or South Africa, Pakistan, just two different teams. If it's not going to be England, I'd love to see England win it as well. But my money's probably on India. I think that one of Rohit Sharma or Kohli will come good. They've just got a very strong team. I mean, Jasprit Bumrah can win a game by himself. I think you can't discount him. So yeah, my money's on India, which is a shame because it means the final's not going to be in Pakistan. But what can you do? They've basically chosen the rules for this.
I mean, the tickets only go on sale 4 days before the final. So
should we go?
Cricket Nerds on the ground. If we get 10,000 views on this video, we'll go to the Champion Trophy final.
Don't promise that. You can go by yourself if you want. Thank you so much for watching. It's we want to make more of these, so keep subscribing, keep liking our videos, share them on social media. You can follow us on social media as well. The links are in the description, and see you soon.
And it's the IPL soon, so we'll be here loads.